Okay, now, yeah. Okay. So, concerning the future of the Nintendo Switch, the reason I assume you came here rather than to see Breath of the Wild Link mimic um, and Tears of the Kingdom Link's attire. Yeah. Yeah. But first, I should probably bring up software. So, whilst it is true that Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 are the only two officially announced first-party titles for this year. Well, first of all, as far as third-party titles, we have of Suikoden N1 and 2 HD Remaster, Rhapsody, Marvel Kingdom Chronicles, Amba de Amigo Party Central, Bon Kaido 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Rift of the Necrodancer, Super Bomberman R2, Convergence, A League of Legends story, and likewise Song of New, A League of Legends story, Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection, and Puzzle Bubble, Every Bubble, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Repair, Deca Police, Gunbrella, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, Front Mission 2 Remake, Story of Seasons of Wonderful Life, Rune Factory 3 Special, Disney's Illusion Island, Sea of Stars, Oxenfree 2, Lost Signals, Anton Blast, and Warthog something or other, just to name a few, are some of the some of the third-party titles to be known to be on the way. It is worth noting that there's also DLC for the first and second party titles. That being Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope expansion pass, the Scarlet and Violet DLC, in Splatoon 3 expansion pass, Side Order, and of course the remaining two waves of Mario Kart 8, a booster course pass. So yeah, there is a decent amount of software coming out for the existing Nintendo Switch slated for this year. But what about what isn't known yet? I mean, of course, we recently got onto Metroid Prime Remaster, so seeing as I suspect that it used a decent amount of assets meant for Metroid Prime 4, and considering how critically acclaimed Prime 1 Remaster was, I'd say that it's worth saying that the and at this point now they have to real now they have to do the remasters of 2 and 3 simply because, well, 3 would benefit from the control upgrades, and, well, both 2 and 3 would probably make use of assets already made for both 1 and 4, along with any assets needed for the both and needed for one or the other that can be shared between the two, but that's beside the point. Yeah. So as for when I suspect these 2 remasters to release, well, if they are to release, then or should I say be announced, then I expect, well, I would expect to see a Metroid Prime 2 Echoes remastered to be announced at the June Nintendo Direct, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption in remastered at the September Nintendo Direct. As for Metroid Prime 4, though we might see something concerning it this year, I suspect 4 in 24 will be the way they go. As for what else they could release, well, there have been rumors of a new Mario game. I mean, as for what that could be, I mean, there are 4 ways they could go. A 2D new Super Mario Bros., a new Super Mario Galaxy, a new Super Mario 3D World, or a new open zone owned 3D title akin to Odyssey. But of course, it is worth noting that Nintendo did go on record saying that they have no heavy hitters to announce in the summer. And with Mario being a flagship IP for them, I mean, the flagship IP for them, I mean, with The Legend of Zelda being in second place. I mean, it's debatable whether or not they would announce a new Mario game at this time, simply because of that detail. Although, is it too early for Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Paris 2024? Either way. As for Donkey Kong, I mean, there's been rumors of that too, so yeah, could go either way with that. I mean, 2D or 3D, but a Donkey Kong Country game, I mean, it's possible that could have been what Retro was working on before, before Bandai Namco was told to call it quits on Metroid Prime 4, but then again, yeah. And moving on one more thing that's been rumored um, is F-Zero GX remastered, which I still say that if we're getting that, it will actually be F-Zero AX, the arcade version of GX. So, yeah. Other than that, the only thing that comes to mind for something that could be released this year, I mean, seeing as this year is the 40th anniversary of the Famicom, I suppose they could port NES Remix Pack to Nintendo Switch. But then again, they might also just save it for next year, simply so it can be at the at the point between the anniversary of the Famicom and the anniversary of the NES. Either way, I think that's enough for software. Now on to hardware. Now, there have been rumors of something new for the Nintendo Switch. Now, before I get into that, I should probably go over the history of the releases. I mean, the original Nintendo Switch, which I'm going to refer to as the Mark I, that was announced on October 20th, 2016. I mean, through the press conference for it on January 13th, 2017, with the actual release date being March 3rd, 2017. 2 years later, they announced the Nintendo Switch Lite, which I'd like to say I actually guessed that it was going to be called the Nintendo Switch Lite before it was announced. And figured it might follow an existing naming scheme, and I was correct. But anyway, that was announced July 10th, 2019, and released in September 20th, 2019. And it's worth noting that that Nintendo also released the Nintendo Switch Mark II, which had a better battery life and removed the Achilles heel, if you know what I mean. This was announced in July 17th, 2019, and released sometime in mid-August 2019. No specific release date for this. It was just simply the item that got sent to stores when the stores ordered more Nintendo Switch models, or more Nintendo Switch units, I should say. That's actually the correct retail term, I think. But of course, after of course, not long after this, we started getting rumors of of a more powerful Nintendo Switch. Sound familiar? Of course, we didn't get that at the time. I mean, in July, on July 6th, wait, let me have myself a bit. Means there were rumors of a more powerful Switch that could output to 4K and would have an OLED screen. However, is on July 6th, 2021, we did get the announcement of the Nintendo Switch OLED, which, as the name suggests, did have an OLED screen. But of course, this new model, which was released on October 8th, 2021, it obviously did not have 4K output, but it did have a couple interesting chips in the dock, so, well, jury's still out on what that means for the Nintendo Switch, but my point being, there have been rumors for a long time of a more powerful Nintendo Switch. And regardless of what is we get, well, let me go over the chart again. The original Nintendo Switch, announced in October 2016, released March 2017. Nintendo Switch Lite, July 2019, it was announced. September 2019, it was released. Nintendo Switch OLED, announced July 2021, released October 2021. So you see the pattern here. 2017, 2019, 2021, 2023. There's a good chance, and I'd say there's a good chance we might see something sometime this year. But of course, also going by this chart, don't expect to hear anything officially until July at the earliest, because the Mark II, the Switch Lite, and the OLED all were announced in July. I doubt Nintendo would announce it any sooner. So, yeah. As early as July, yes, but also as late as October. And on that note, depending on what it is we get, it could release as early as September, or as late as March. As for As for more exact timings, well, obviously, first of all, the June Nintendo Direct would be too soon. So, it could be just a standalone trailer, or released in July. However, I should probably make note of a couple of events. First of all, Nintendo Live 2023, which is going to be happening in Seattle, September 1st through the 4th. Now, Nintendo has already gone on record saying there won't be any announcements here. So, I guess the real question is, for this event, is it a last hurrah for the existing Nintendo Switch, or just a toast to many more years of the Nintendo Switch? Who knows? All that matters at this particular moment is no announcements here. Now, announced a little later on, Gamescom 2023, Nintendo shall be attending. August 23rd to the 27th. Now, they could still announce it early. It could still announce whatever it is early, that being in July. But I did make note of the January 2017 press conference for a reason. Though they could announce something new for the Nintendo Switch line at Gamescom 2023, it's also possible that if they announce it sooner than that, that could be when they hold the press conference to get into the details about the specs and functionality of the new system. Oh, and this just in. PAX West 2023. Apparently it's happening at the same time as Nintendo Live 2023 in Seattle. So, I guess it is possible we could see an announcement for what's next for the Nintendo Switch line. I mean, at that September event after all. But I wouldn't count on it. Though it is reasonable to assume that we might at least see an announcement for some kind of for a third-party e-title. Or that could be when they hold the Direct. Who knows? But enough talking about dates. I guess I should probably address the elephant in the room. What could we get? If we are getting something new for the Nintendo Switch line, well, there are a few possibilities. first possibility, we get nothing. We could end up with nothing for the Nintendo Switch this year. Nintendo could just be satisfied with what they've got and continue on for a little longer. We could get something that is a new entry in the Nintendo Switch line of systems, but it could just be something that we don't expect, such as a Nintendo Switch Lite with an OLED screen, for example. And, of course, the third option, we could actually get a new Nintendo Switch or a successor thereof. Of course, don't expect the Nintendo Switch of ultimate power or anything like that. But I guess I should probably go over the possibilities for what a new Nintendo Switch or successor thereof could be, or could feature. We have compiled a few variables. Let's see, one possibility would of course be a more powerful CPU, or should I say SoC, because that's the official, because a system on a chip is actually what powers the Nintendo Switch, which contains the CPU and GPU, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll just say CPU for now. Yeah. So, a more powerful CPU we could get. Perhaps some more RAM. I mean, nothing too fancy, just 6 or 8 gigabytes. Yeah, I've seen some, of course, I've also seen some renders for a Nintendo Switch with a folding screen, so, I mean, Nintendo could do something with that. After all, they did patent, and, they did file a patent for folding Joy-Con on controllers, so, yeah. 5G connectivity, that's something that they could do. I mean, seeing as they've really been doing a lot with Nintendo Switch Online lately. I mean, 4K video, that's a possibility. A camera and or microphone, I suppose they could do. Maybe even a 1080p screen. As for the controllers, well, I'll get to those later. Now, I should probably go over the plausibility of all these features. I mean, a more powerful SoC? yeah, it's definitely so. And there have been strong rumors of that sort of thing. I mean, of course. Well, I mean, if they are doing a new Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch successor, I mean, of course they'd probably make it more powerful. That is a 70% give. That's a 70% given, I'd say. More RAM? I mean, possible, I guess, um, but then again, depending on, I mean, I suppose, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose that it would, depending on what it is we do get, I mean, it would probably make sense for some more RAM. But again, I don't expect too much more RAM. Again, only a total of 6 to 8 GB. I mean, if they decide to move away from, if they decide to do more than 4. Of course, one other possibility I should probably discuss is storage. I doubt they're going to do more storage, honestly. I mean, having a in having in a set having the amount that the Nintendo Switch has now in conjunction with a micro SD card seems to be a good solution. Of course, I don't think it would be the 32 gigabytes that the base Nintendo Switch has, but the 64 gigabytes that the OLED has. I mean, 64 gigabytes is nothing to sneeze at. 5G connectivity. Now, again, that would be beneficial for Nintendo Switch Online. And I guess it wouldn't be too difficult to add 5G hardware into have 5G transmission and reception hardware in the Nintendo Switch. And of course, a SIM card slot would be easy enough to add. But of course, it might be a bit of a nightmare to connect it with to have its interface with any infrastructure. I mean, I suppose Nintendo could work out a deal with one or more or cellular companies so that it could use 5G cellular data in the given region. But again, and of course have the cost of the 5G bill be included in be included as part of Nintendo Switch Online itself. Because remember, Nintendo Switch Online is uh, more than just Virtual Console. But yeah. So yeah, it'd be a bit of a nightmare to negotiate, but assuming they could work it out, I mean, how hard could it be to make it work? Of course, there'd have to probably be it'd probably have to connect to specific networks for specific regions. I mean, obviously you can't have the obviously you can't have the American models use the same network as the Japanese models, because that just wouldn't work, because one would be out of range of the other. But enough of that. I mean, depending on what kind of screen is needed or is used for the next Nintendo Switch model, I mean, a 1080p screen could be included. Of course, a 4K screen is absurd. In fact, I've heard it's actually not best for the eyes to have that kind of screen so close to your face. But yeah, so 1080p, I suppose it could happen. But keep in mind that you have to factor in the size of the physical size of the screen along with the resolution, before saying it should be this resolution or that resolution. I mean, many people think 1080p is obsolete, but I mean, a small resolution image at an actual small size will actually look quite decent at its proper size. Just saying. Now, the folding screen idea. True, it's just a sort of fun idea Nintendo would probably find interest in. However, first of all, durability might be a problem. This has to be a system that can be used by people of all ages. So, if they're going to go with one folding screen rather than two separate screens that just so happen to fold together, then it has to be durable. It has to be rugged. It has to be immune to at least half the things that could possibly happen to it. Plus, there is one other problem with the folding screen idea. The average cost of a cell phone with a folding screen is about $800 to $1,000 and or so dollars. By way of contrast, the Nintendo Switch average is at $300. See the problem here? As much as a folding screen might be a fun idea, I mean, I just don't think it's gonna happen because of the cost of making it and selling it. Remember, this is not an we're not the Nintendo Switch is not an enthusiast system. It's a system for everyone. So, in order for it to be a system that, in order for it to be a system for everyone, it has to be affordable. So that's the reason why I don't think a Nintendo Switch of ultimate power, like everyone wants, is going to happen. It has to, in whatever they do next, whether it be an, a, a new Nintendo Switch or a successor to the Nintendo Switch, it has to be relatively affordable. No, it should probably cost no more than $400. And even then, $400, that's a bit high, even with inflation. So yeah, you have to. It has to be whatever we get. It has to be the right balance between an an improvement and an and an affordable option. And of course, just making it more and it's worth noting that also just making the system more powerful may not be enough to draw in the in into in just making it more powerful. Just making it have a higher or output resolution, that may not necessarily be enough for the average person to want to upgrade from the Nintendo Switch to the into whatever comes next from the current one. Not the, anyway. So yeah, it has to be the right balance between power and price, while also while also being appealing to the average person. Yeah. I mean, a camera and microphone, I suppose that could make for an interesting gimmick. But would Nintendo do the Nintendo Switch Eye? I mean, maybe. But as for 4K, that they could probably do, actually. Now, of course, as I was as I was implying earlier, obviously they're not going to do 4K in handheld mode. But 4K in TV mode, that they could do. Now, there are a few ways to do it. First of all, the system could be just that powerful, so that it would be able to output to 4K on its own. Another possibility is it remains a 1080p system, but takes advantage of DLSS upscaling to make a 4K image. A third possibility, it's not actually a Switch that does it, but the dock. I mean, I made note of some hardware inside the OLED dock. Perhaps that has something to, perhaps that in combination with something in the system itself would allow for DLSS upscaling to 4K, of course. So yeah, let's go over this. So yeah, let's recap these system possibilities. A generally more powerful system could happen, but what's the what's in it for the casuals? A system with 5G, and definitely a good prospect for everyone, but might be a bit complicated to implement. A Switch with a folding screen. A fun idea, don't get me wrong, but too expensive. Most likely. Nintendo Switch I? Could happen, but why? A Nintendo Switch with 4K output. This could be a feature in any of the ones I just mentioned. And I'd say it's very plausible. Just by the fact that there's 3 ways it could go about it, depending on how powerful this next system could be. Now for controllers. Obviously, obviously for the sake of PR, they'd probably upgrade the analog sticks because of the fact that there's so much bad publicity, so much bad uh, due to the fact that the existing Joy-Con on 6 get a bad rap because the earlier models were not built as well as it could have been. Yeah, I should make a note of that. It was the earlier models that were the problem, not the ones not necessarily the ones currently on the market. They found a solution. They figured out why it was failing and found a way to make it not fail so easily. There have been improvements to the design that you just can't see from the outside. So they could keep the existing design with the improved with the established fixes, or it's possible that they could get on the Hall effect bandwagon. I mean, there are third-party sticks that to look just like the stock sticks that I'm told work great and are, of course, very easy to install. You know, if you're upset at the fact I didn't and at none of my mock-ups feature a different stick design, that's the reason. Hall effect sticks exist that look just like the stock ones. So, yeah. Of course, why didn't Nintendo do this sooner? Well, first of all, there were kangaroo lawsuits pending that prevented Nintendo from making any changes to the analog sticks on the Nintendo Switch. And second, despite Hall effect technology being around in the 90s, it was only viable to to sell Hall effect sticks in controllers in recent times due to the fact, well, or so I suspect, that Sega held the patent for Hall effect sticks for all this time. But of course, Nintendo and Sega, for quite some time now, have been working quite closely. So, it's possible Nintendo could license Sega's version of the sticks, or alternatively, they could just do Hall effect sticks anyway, regardless of Sega's involvement, because of the reason why I suspect that Hall effect sticks are emerging now. The patent expired, or so I assume. I mean, it's been 22 years, it's been over 22 years, so the patent should have expired by now. Hence why companies are able to use Hall effect sticks nowadays. Because no patent. Because no active patent preventing them. So, yeah. They could advertise the Hall effect sticks as a feature for both the system and the controllers alike. But I don't think Hall effect sensors, Hall effect sticks, are enough to sell a system or a controller. And this Pro controller is rather perfect as it is, for the most part. So what could they improve? So what is there to improve with the controller? I suppose they could do a slightly better D-pad. And they have a lot of their legacy AD pads being manufactured these days, so they could easily use one of those. And of course, Hall effect sticks, but of course, the two features that many high-end controllers tend to have these days, or some not so high-end actually, what the Pro controller what the Switch Pro controller has, what those controllers have that the Switch Pro controller doesn't. Well, there are two items. Remappable back buttons. That's something they could add to the Pro controller. A set of 4 remappable buttons on the back of the controller, or for whatever the player might or developer might use those for. Easy enough to implement, and one interesting detail: the existing Joy-Cons, if set up properly and used in what I'm going to refer to as Wii Remote mode, technically already have this feature. When you have shoulder buttons on the rail of the Joy-Con, and you also have a shoulder button and a trigger at the top of the Joy-Con. So, at least in theory, that feature is already in the Joy-Con. They just need to bring it over to the Pro controller. Of course, they would probably have to make a new version of the Joy-Con, which would have it on the back for the sake of handheld mode and grip mode. But the other feature, analog triggers. I mean, this was a feature all the way back on the GameCube, yet Nintendo only did it once and never again. How hard could it be to refine the design and bring it back? Miniaturize it enough to put it in the Joy-Con or equivalent of. Now, I don't know about the Joy-Con, but analog GameCube-style triggers, along with back buttons, they could easily add to the Pro controller for the next system. Now, I guess there's one other thing I should discuss. Well, backwards compatibility. As MVG pointed out, there might be some complications with backwards compatibility on the next Nintendo Switch, or whatever they call it. But there's also solutions. So I should probably go over that. Now, they could use an SoC that is more powerful than the Tegra X1, and, well, yet still uses the Maxwell architecture, thus being just a more powerful version of the existing Nintendo Switch chip. Another possibility, it could be a different architecture. They could make a chip that's more powerful, with the drawback of it being not using the same architecture as before. In which case, there are two possibilities. Either this chip has a shrunk down version of the Tegra X1 included somewhere in the new chip, or the other possibility is to just put the Tegra X1 or a variant thereof somewhere else on the board, separate from the new SoC. Another possibility, they could do a Switch emulator if the chip is powerful enough. Or another possibility, no backwards compatibility. Actually timed that part decently well. Unintentionally, of course. Um, let me readjust the camera to get back to how I had it. Yeah. Anyway. I mean, depending on if it is a successor to the Nintendo Switch rather than a new Nintendo Switch, they obviously don't have to have it be backwards compatible. They don't even have to have cartridges, which is a scary thought because, well, cartridges is not only make it so that you actually own the software rather than just purchase a license for it, but if for some reason, and any at all, the rights holder or decides to get rid of it, it's gone. So physical is for the best, simply because if you buy a hard copy, you always have it, unless you get rid of it. But enough of it anyway. So, yeah, they could forego backwards compatibility in favor of just porting everything over or again, or or just have an upgrade patch to make it compatible. So, of course, it is worth no. So, of course, I should probably also mention that backwards compatibility or no backwards compatibility, I suspect that will probably get the upgrade patch anyway. Because if there is a more powerful system, why not take advantage of the extra power? Why not um, patch the game to make it run better, or if the rights holder is still interested in doing so. And it's possible that backwards compatibility or no backwards compatibility, if physical copies exist for the new system, then Nintendo and other companies might reissue the games in, as games for the new system with these upgrades included. I mean, why not? Especially if we're talking bestsellers such as pretty much any a Legend of Zelda game. Half the Mario games, including, of course, Mario Kart, which Mario Kart would probably get would probably have the booster course pass included as well. unless of course they decide to make Mario Kart 10. Uh, we're never getting Mario Kart 9 because Tour is 9. So we can't get what we already got. But again, getting off topic. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, we could easily see an upgrade patch regardless of whether or not the system is backwards compatible. Of course, then again, it's also possible it might not need a patch. Many games, they're not capped at a specific they're not capped at a specific frame rate, and the frame rate often just depends on on how on how much stamina the processor has at the time. So, if they were to, so let's say the emulation is nothing more than so let's say the emulation is nothing more than just a translation layer, a way to have any and all games just use the new chip drivers instead of the old chip drivers. If that's the case, then and and many games would just run better by default, akin to how it works if one were to overclock the existing system. But of course, if the system is powerful enough, it might just be best to include an emulator. I mean, if Kotaku is anything to go by, then and you can emulate the Nintendo Switch without out out a hitch, if you know what I mean. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully the next Nintendo Switch will have backwards compatibility, but I make no guarantees. The next Nintendo Switch could be more powerful. In fact, probably will, but we know not how powerful, if at all. I mean, it will probably have a more powerful chip, but after that, what else? Will it have more RAM? Will it have 4K capabilities? Will it be appealing to the average person rather than just the enthusiasts. Either way, Nintendo doesn't need the system to be more powerful, but the third parties would greatly appreciate it. However, didn't I hear a while back that someone at Nintendo did actually express interest in 4K for the sake of better visual detail on the faces of Pikmin? Pikmin 4 comes out in July. Sure, there uh, some there is an upscaling technique used with many existing Nintendo Switch titles, and said feature will probably be a thing in the will probably be a thing in Pikmin 4 as well. It kind of makes you wonder, is there a 4K Switch on the way? I mean, who knows? Either way, regardless of what happens next for the Nintendo Switch, I mean, don't expect anything till July at the earliest. And even if we do see something in July, don't expect to be able to get your hands on it this year. It could be something that is announced. It's very likely that whatever is next could be announced this year but released next year. I mean, yeah, very likely. And what's also likely? I mean, backwards compatible or not, upgrade or successor, Nintendo Switch Online will in fact carry over to whatever is next. That is the one thing that can absolutely be guaranteed. Nintendo seemingly is Nintendo went on record and heavily implied that they're not going to start over with the virtual console system. They are sticking with Nintendo Switch Online. Which in some ways is a double-edged sword, seeing as you can't get excited about the original Super Mario Brothers or A Link to the Past being added to the Virtual Console service anymore, but the benefits heavily outweigh the downsides. And, of course, every couple of years, it's reasonable to assume we'll get more system, get a new, or we'll get a new system or two to change to fresh things up, to freshen things up a bit. But the future of Nintendo Switch Online, as Alton Brown um, um, often said, that's another show. So, I think I've covered everything. So, of course, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover today. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's only makes sense. Or should I say, yeah. It only makes sense to end it here. I mean, I've covered just about everything. A few titles that may or may not be. I mean, a few titles that are. I mean, a few titles that are definitely on the way. A few titles that could be on the way. Hardware possibilities. Backwards compatibility, controllers. You name it, and I probably mentioned it. I think. So I guess that's all for now.